it's 4:30 in the morning. But it's been bugging me that I think it would be remiss of me, especially after the last video where I was talking about he who shall not be named, to continue to give the impression that trauma is something you shouldn't blame yourself for, because I don't think you should blame yourself for it. However, you can't blame anybody else either. Because a very important part of that story, of that last psycho ex abusive boyfriend scenario that I was in, repeating scenario, but yes, the last one that finally broke me. Now, I'm extraordinarily grateful to that guy for breaking apart my idea of relationships, because I needed to know that the relationship I was having with myself was the shittiest relationship I ever had with anyone. And it wasn't until I was walking up the steps of 850 Bryant to go and fill out my report for to get my hospital expenses paid for through this program funded by the city for women of domestic violence, for all my x-rays for my broken ribs and shit. Because as I was walking up the steps to go in to 850 Bryant and fill out all the paperwork for that, it suddenly occurred to me that I needed to take responsibility for having attracted that person into my life for a specific reason, and I knew exactly what the reason was all of a sudden. And it was because the reason I was with that psycho guy and all the other psycho guys in the past was truthfully because I wanted to fucking die, and I didn't want to be the one to do it. So in the back of my mind, I was always kind of hoping he would off me. So it was really just a death wish. I was letting death in on purpose, subconsciously. Granted, it was totally subconscious while it was happening, but when it was over, I suddenly realized that the repeating pattern of letting totally psycho guys into my life because A, they would not stick around long enough for me to be there, long term, whatever. They wouldn't want me to have kids, so, and it wouldn't last long, so I knew they would leave. And if they didn't leave, there was always a chance they might kill me. And I was okay with that subconsciously because, I was done living. For most of my life, I was pretty much done living since I died. Even though I did come back and I made the choice to do that, I still knew in the back of my mind that I was sending out the subconscious signal that I was done. Because even when he did finally scream at the top of his lungs that he was going to kill me, I was like, go ahead, please, do. I'm ready. Let's go. Deliver me from this earthly plane. And then he ran away. Ran away like a little boy. Said, no, I can't. And I was extremely disappointed. That's funny now, but it took many, many years for that to be funny. But, that was the truth of the matter, is that I was ready to die. And that's why I let death in on purpose, even though I didn't know it at the time. And I think that's really hard for a lot of women to admit to themselves, that they get into these relationships with really abusive men because a part of them is so fucking sick of living. especially when it's just a repeating pattern of one abuse upon the next, and it's like this compounding trauma that starts, when you're like 4. And after having admitted that, my relationship to myself got a lot better, because then I started admitting a lot of shit to myself. Like, I was done sucking dick. I just wanted to be done sucking dick. I've been sucking dick since I was 5. I was made to suck it since I was 5. At least I was told I should be sucking dick since I was like 5, even though I didn't want to most of the time. And, oh dear. I don't know why society likes to believe that a woman can't possibly be a whole human being or happy, not as the second half of someone else's life. But they seem real insistent on that shit, because I can't not even tell you the number of men who have been like, but they just don't get it. They like look at me like I'm a total fucking anomaly. There's something seriously mentally wrong with me, that I would be happier than I've ever been alone than I could ever have been in any relationship. And that is specifically because now I'm having the best relationship I've ever had with myself. Because I'm not throwing myself under the bus constantly. I'm not, putting myself last every time in the list of people's needs. Because at some point, after my parents disowned me, especially, I mean before that, but then it was like rock solid after they disowned me, that the most important thing in my life was to be the advocate for my own well-being. Because now it was completely and utterly proven to me that no one else was ever gonna be. There was something so hard to accept about the fact that your mom doesn't like you. And like, that was always on repeat in the back of my head. Well, if my own mom doesn't even fucking care about me, then why would anyone else, And that isn't even like an adult way of looking at things. That's just the kid inside of you crying, basically. But it's a lot easier to just hug that kid and be like, well, if she doesn't like you, that's her problem. I like you. I'll be your mom. And then you just start mothering yourself, being the mom to yourself that you always wish you had. Apparently it's called self-parenting. It's like a technique for a lot of trauma people for healing. And I didn't know it was an actual technique. I just decided all those nights sitting in the back of the car with my parents on our way to like group therapy or whatever that we had to do in New Jersey, and I'd be staring at the moon. I always felt closer to the moon than to either one of those people in the front seat of the car. And in a way, I always felt like my real mother was, this etheric real mother. Like there was somebody out there that was looking after me. And essentially it was me from the future. Or some other, like spiritual part of me that was looking after me, because I knew I had to go through all this shit on some level for whatever reason. I still don't know, but I still am not sure why. But why doesn't really matter at this point. It just really mattered that at that point, when they did disown me, that I was able to completely 100% commit to following the path of being there for myself above anyone else, and not abandoning myself every time another person's needs came into the picture. Yeah, because I mean, it's a huge responsibility to um, accept that your happiness is your responsibility, that no one else is ever going to come bring it to you. There was a song that really kind of summed it up that I heard right before I got into the truck and drove away and became sober and all that shit. The who that it's actually an old spiritual. So kind of that the lyrics are you have to walk the lonesome valley all by yourself because no one else is going to walk it for you. And that's what it's like. And then after, I don't know, something happens after you kind of commit to that, you know? Commit to not being a dick to yourself and not letting society convince you, as hard as it will try to convince you, that there's something wrong with you because you're not sucking dick anymore. That you're somehow less of a person because you're not in a relationship with other people in the form that they want to see you because, you know, breeders, society, all that shit. They're so concerned with that. Because that's really, you know, the end all be all for a lot of people is the relationships they have. And I understand why and where that comes from. But if you're not one of those people, I mean, ultimately, it will probably be, you know, the end all be all, but on a totally different level for people like me who avoid relationships because we still do have relationships. It's just of a totally different nature. I don't know how to really describe it, but when I was doing that thing the other night where I was blessing everyone who ever hurt me, you know, and I saw just how many people it was, and I felt like, and the last few days I've been surrounded by spiders again. Like that's always a kind of like a call to recognize the web that you're in, you know, because it is a web. You're never just one solitary object. You're always part of a web. Um, and you can still be in relationships with others without fucking other people, you know? There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being in platonic relationships with other people. I don't know why. There's so much pressure in the world to go beyond that, but I'm done sucking dick. Just done. And it, you know, it's also not like I was only ever sexually traumatized by men because, you know, I also had sexual trauma from a feminine source, shall we say, from an extremely early age, probably earlier than I could put words to, since I didn't have words to use at that point, since it was pre-verbal. But yeah, there's that's kind of one of the things, especially after you start taking responsibility for your own happiness and some of your subconscious shit starts to open up, especially through meditations. You know, you start discovering memories that are have been repressed. And I know a lot of people don't like that theory, but uh they're in there and you know they're memories because you just know. It's shit that you just know and you don't want to know. It's not like you're excited to find out, but when you do find out, everything kind of falls into place psychologically. So you can't really, it's not something you're making up, you know what I mean? And why would you want to make up something like that? It's a very brutal uh, realization. It's a pretty horrifying image when it does come back to you. And most of the times, when those repressed memories do come back, you're seeing them from outside of your body because, of course, you were dissociating while they were happening, and that's how you remember them. And that was sort of like the nail in the coffin for me on those memories because I was like, well, you know, anyway, that's neither here nor there. But it is one of the things that's probably stops a lot of people from wanting to become more self-aware is that if they have trauma, it's always that scary concept of just how much trauma is going to be in there, in that box once you open it. But when you do open it and you look at all the scary pictures and you cry about them and then you hug your little kid self and you go back to sleep and you wake up the next day, it's almost like nothing can really hurt you the same after that, which I think is probably part of the purpose of having to go through all that shit. It's because it prepares you for something else later in life. Like what's happening now with the whole abortion thing. I mean, I know that's making a lot of people really angry, but because of all the trauma and anger and all that shit that I went through my whole life for 50 years, I don't get angry at those kinds of situations anymore. I just see the other side of them now. To me, this makes it so obvious how flailingly scared certain people in power are that they feel they need to go to those lengths in order to make it the population of women scared and angry. Because if you can make your population scared and angry, then you're basically flooding them with cortisol, which will shorten their lifespan. So instead, I like to look at those scenarios that the government is putting upon us right now and be joyful in my life in spite of all their fucking bullshit. Because they can't kill you if you're already dead. And just to imagine instead, spend my time and energy imagining the feeling of overturning that shit, of having that shit already been overturned, of a mass feeling of relief, of all of us having surpassed the things that people try to do to us or to force us into, of women globally having reclaimed their position in life, to not feel like they're less human or somehow less important or vital to the existence of humans in general. That isn't mankind, that we are humankind. To me, that is a much more constructive place to put my energy than to just yell and scream and be angry, because that is just giving me cancer, basically, and making me feel like a victim again. And I'm pretty much fucking done feeling like a victim. And that's kind of the point of this little monologue, is to say the most important thing anyone can do for themselves is to be their own advocate for their own well-being and take responsibility for, their own existence here on planet Earth, not blame anyone else. And in that way, you actually end up being of better service to others, because then you're more hole inside, you know? I was watching this movie tonight. Oh my god, it was so fucking triggering. I wanted to fucking get high so bad. It was horrible. And I haven't even really, I mean, it's working. My plan of just like having all substances become like weed, where I just kind of forget to smoke it. And then it just kind of like falls off me like a dead skin, you know? And it's not like a big, oh, it's just counting the minutes and, you know, all that's kind of like out the window, you know? That it's that I'm not like, I don't know how many weeks it is, I don't know how many days it is, I don't know how many hours it is, I don't know how many months it is, you know, like I'm not counting calendar moments like I've had to do in the past, and it's not that, you know, it's not the center focus of my thoughts every single day, which is so nice that I've just kind of forgotten about it. And it's just kind of fallen away. But then I watched that fucking movie about a teenage girl who's going through all this violence, sexual trauma. I was so fucking triggered. And I wanted to get high so bad because I was just like hating the world again. I was like, oh god, here we go again. So I turned off the movie and started working on comics instead. And then my vibration instantly went whoop. Then I forgot all about it, and that's good. So yeah, it's little shit like that, little daily decisions of putting your own best interests in your heart. It's not even it's not even a head brain thing. It's more like feeling your own heart again. Maybe for the first time ever for some of us. And the only real downside to that is that you realize how much of your life is gone that you didn't get to feel that way, and that's probably the only sad part about it, really. And all the people who were trying to be good to you that you couldn't recognize that they were trying to be good to you, you know. That's probably the saddest part about all of it. But what are you gonna do, you know? It's just like it happens when it happens. You figure it out when you figure it out, you know. And I gotta say that once you get, if you're sort of on the more masculine end of, if you're on the more testosterone end of femininity, it seems like menopause is a lot easier for you because you don't have as much estrogen to lose. So that's good. But yeah, it's like the war with your uterus is over. It's like half of your body isn't trying to make, like, I just remember my 30s being a fucking war all the time. Like, my body trying to make me breed. And my head going, no! But yeah, I'm so glad I never had kids because, I mean, I could probably be a great mom now, but, you know, now that it's too late to have kids, I'd be a great mom. That's the joke of biology there. Which is also why I don't, you know, all the shit that happened with my parents. When I look at the fact that they were like 21 when all this shit was happening, 23, I'm like, well, yeah, I wouldn't have been a much better mom at 23. So it makes it easier to forgive them for all the fucked up shit they did because they're not even conscious of it. Like, they don't even remember anything, pretty much. And if they do, they would never admit to it, so. But I think I'm probably, I hope, I don't like hoping. Hoping is death. Hopelessness is where it's at, because then you just embrace where you are right now. There's nothing wrong with you that needs to be fixed. You are who you are. All your broken parts are what makes you, your little broken pot, more interesting than all the pots that are not broken. But as long as I can get to 60, if I do, if I get 60 years old without regretting every single thing I've ever done in my life, that would be a good thing. Because when my mom did that in my face, regretted everything that she ever did. Got married, having gotten married, she regretted getting married. She regretted having kids. She regretted giving birth to us. It was so great to hear your mom say that in your face. That was pretty shocking. But yeah, I just figured if I can get to 60 and not regret every single thing I've ever done in my life, that would be a good thing. For the most part, I don't regret much. In fact, all the shit. I'm actually getting to the point now where I'm very grateful for all the shit, you know. Even the people that were horrible to me, because every single one of them, in whatever way they were horrible to me, was pointing me towards some thing that I had to wake up to in my own head. Like, I remember one night in particular, my roommate's boyfriend, all of a sudden, like, we were talking about music, and I was talking about how I wanted to, like, loop my cello through these pedals, and he got so aggro with me and said, "You can't do that. You can't loop your cello through pedals." Which clearly I can. And he doesn't even play cello. Like, he doesn't. But for some reason, he got so aggro and just was like yelling at me about how I can't do all that shit, right? And I spent like the rest of the night just going in this circle in my head where I was so fucking pissed off. I was so mad over and over and over, like yelling at him, but yelling it to myself at him for hours in my room. Until suddenly I was like, wait a minute. And I tried this little experiment with myself where I took a picture of myself in the mirror, and then I said, for the next 24 hours, every time I think about him and start getting angry, I'm just going to gently walk away from those thoughts. And I did. And every 2 minutes, I had to go, nope, gently walk away. And then every 4 minutes, and then every 20 minutes, and then every 2 hours. And this went on, because I was up all night, as one would be when they're high as fuck. But, I sat there all night paying attention to my thoughts. And I just gently kept walking away. And then I started drawing something or working on something, and I totally forgot about it. And it went for like 6 hours, 8 hours, And then I took a picture of myself 24 hours later. And I swear to God, I looked 10 years younger in the second picture than I did in the first picture. And I was like, this is how cortisol and fear mongering are killing you. Like, when shit is done in order specifically to piss people off and make them all angry and send cortisol through their entire bodies and brains, and just put them on that loop of hatred and anger and it is killing them. And so when after that first 24 hours of seeing the actual physical difference in my body, I was like, oh my fucking God. And I was so happy the next time I saw him. And he couldn't understand it, because he was like, hey, I thought I told you couldn't do this. And I was just like, you're right, I can't do that. It's just in my head like, oh my God, you just taught me the best lesson ever. That I, especially when it comes to other people that are in your face telling you shit. Like, it was such a valuable lesson. So, even the people that have been the biggest dicks to me in my life, I'm so grateful for them now, because every single one of them gave me some inkling in terms of getting to know myself and my journey of self-discovery. It's a journey of self-discovery. My schedule is absolutely bedazzled with self-discovery journeys now, you see? Yes, I'm wide awake at 4:30 in the morning talking about journeys of self-discovery and being bedazzled. So yeah, don't let what the fucking government right now is doing cause you to pick up a gun and go on a killing spree, because that's what they want you to do. They're just trying to, get everybody to kill each other so that they can clear the land and make just one giant golf course for the Sacklers and all their friends. So, they want everyone to fucking die. They want them all to be on drugs. They want them all to overdose. They want them all to die of COVID. They want them all to die of cortisol, anger, shooting each other. All of that is just feeding into the Agenda 21 that started way before even 9/11. And now it's just like, they're just trying to get us all to kill each other and ourselves. And, even if you're super pissed off, don't do it just to spite those motherfuckers, okay? Thank you. And goodbye. Squish. Squish. Squishy, squashy, squish, squish. Blah, 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 blah.